year was 2157 and Earth had finally joined the big space club called the Galactic Trade Consortium, but humans were still treated like the new kids nobody wanted to play with. Up on Luna Station, the fancy restaurant called Stellar Heights was where all the important alien business happened, and humans were lucky if they got to clean the floors. Kenji Nakamura walked into the restaurant like he did every Tuesday for the past 6 months. He was one of the richest men on Earth with more money than some small countries. But none of that mattered here. The tall blue Zephyrian traders with their flowing robes looked right through him like he was made of glass. The crystal people called. Voltans made clicking sounds that meant they thought he smelled bad, even though he wore the most expensive cologne money could buy. The gas cloud aliens called Nethax just floated past him without even changing their wispy shapes to acknowledge his presence. Kenji sat down at table 7, which had become his usual spot not because he chose it, but because it was the only table the aliens never wanted. It was right next to the kitchen door where the noise and smells bothered the sensitive alien senses. He pulled out his tablet and started reading reports from his companies back on Earth while he waited for someone to take his order. The other human servers always found excuses to avoid his table. They whispered that serving the Japanese man was pointless because he never got any real business deals anyway. Why waste time on someone the aliens ignored when they could focus on tables where real money changed hands? The tips from alien customers were much better than anything a human could afford. Lisa Murphy had been working at Stellar Heights for 8 months, and she noticed things other people missed. She was 23 years old from a small town in Ohio and working 2 jobs to pay for her studies in alien languages. While other servers gossiped about celebrities or complained about their shifts, Lisa watched the customers and learned their habits. She noticed how the Zephyrian trade lords always ordered their drinks at exactly the right temperature and got angry if it was even 1 degree off. She saw how the Voltan crystal merchants needed their food arranged in perfect geometric patterns, or they would refuse to eat. She learned that Nethak collectives shared their meals in a specific order that meant something important in their culture. Most importantly, she noticed the man at table 7 who sat with such quiet dignity, even when everyone ignored him. She had looked up his name in the reservation system and found out he was Kenji Nakamura, owner of dozens of technology companies and inventor of some of the most advanced computer systems humans had ever created. Yet here he sat every week like a ghost that nobody could see. The first time Lisa brought Kenji his order, she had done something that surprised him. Instead of asking what he wanted, she brought him perfectly prepared green tea in a traditional Japanese cup and a small plate of wagashi sweets that she had learned to make from videos on the Earth Internet. She had studied enough about Japanese culture to know these were important, and she served them with a proper bow. Kenji had looked up at her with genuine surprise in his dark eyes. No one at Stellar Heights had ever shown him such respect or attention to his cultural background. He thanked her in Japanese, and she had replied with a simple phrase she had practiced, meaning it was her honor to serve him. From that day forward, Lisa made sure Table 7 got the same careful attention she gave to the alien customers. She learned more Japanese phrases and studied Kenji's business background. She discovered he had invented something called a universal translator that could help different species understand each other perfectly, but no aliens would listen to his presentations about it. On this particular Tuesday evening, the restaurant was busier than usual. A group of important Voltan merchants had taken the large corner table and were discussing a huge trade deal involving rare crystals from their home world. Their harmonic clicking filled the dining room as they debated prices and shipping routes. At another table, 3 Zephyrian lords were planning a new space route that would cut travel time between star systems in half. Lisa moved between the tables with practiced efficiency. She spoke to the Voltans in their crystal language, asking if their geometric food arrangements were satisfactory. She adjusted the atmospheric processors near the Nethak table so their gas forms would be more comfortable. She made sure the Zephyrian drink stayed at precisely the right temperature, but as always, nobody spoke to the man at table 7 except her. Kenji sat reading reports about his latest invention improvements while sipping his perfectly prepared tea. His universal translator device sat on the table next to his tablet, looking like just another piece of human technology that the aliens assumed was primitive. If they had bothered to examine it, they would have discovered it was more advanced than anything in the Galactic Consortium archives. The device could translate not just words but cultural concepts and emotional meanings between any two species. It could help the Voltans understand why Zephyrians valued honor over profit, and help Zephyrians see why Nethacs made decisions as a group mind, instead of individuals. It could revolutionize trade negotiations and prevent the misunderstandings that often led to economic conflicts between worlds. But none of the aliens cared what a human had invented. Lisa watched from across the room as Kenji finished his tea and quietly paid his bill. He left a generous tip as always and walked out of the restaurant with the same dignity he had entered with. She wondered what it must feel like to have solutions to problems that affected the entire galaxy, but no way to share them because of prejudice and ignorance. As she cleaned table 7, Lisa noticed Kenji had left behind a small data chip. She picked it up and saw it contained technical specifications for his universal translator, along with test results showing its capabilities. The data proved his device could solve communication problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Lisa looked around the restaurant at all the alien customers who barely tolerated human presence and made a decision that would change everything. She was tired of watching a brilliant man be ignored just because he was human. She was tired of her own species being treated like they had nothing valuable to contribute to galactic civilization. Tomorrow she would do something about it. The next morning, Lisa arrived at Stellar Heights early and spent her break time studying the data chip Kenji had left behind. The technical information was way beyond her understanding, but the test results were clear enough. His universal translator could process and convert languages faster and more accurately than anything the Galactic Consortium used for official communications. The current translation systems took minutes to process complex ideas and often got cultural meanings completely wrong. Kenji's device could handle real-time conversations while preserving emotional context and cultural significance. It was exactly what the galaxy needed to improve trade negotiations and prevent conflicts caused by misunderstandings. But there was a problem that made Lisa angry when she discovered it. The device worked perfectly for human-to-human communication and could translate between any human languages instantly. However, it needed linguistic data from other species to work with alien languages, and none of the alien governments would provide that information to humans. The official reason was that human technology was too primitive to handle sensitive linguistic data safely. The real reason, according to some notes in the files, was that alien governments did not want humans to understand their private communications. They preferred to keep humans dependent on official translators who could control what information got shared. Lisa spent her lunch break researching galactic translation protocols and discovered something that made her even more angry. Many human proposals for trade deals and technology sharing had been rejected over the years, but the rejection letters did not match what the humans had actually proposed. Key technical terms had been translated incorrectly, making human ideas sound primitive or dangerous. She found examples where human offers to share medical technology had been translated as attempts to conduct biological warfare. Human proposals for improved space travel had been described as plans to build weapons. Human cultural exchange programs had been presented as attempts at espionage and infiltration. The mistranslations were too consistent to be accidental. Someone was deliberately making human communications sound threatening or worthless to prevent other species from taking humans seriously. It was a conspiracy to keep humanity isolated and powerless in galactic politics. That evening, Lisa watched Kenji take his usual seat at table 7 and decided to act. She brought his tea and sweets as always, but this time she also brought his data chip back. She sat down across from him without asking permission, which was against restaurant rules, but she did not care. She spoke to him in her basic Japanese and told him she had studied his translator data. She explained what she had discovered about the mistranslations and the conspiracy to suppress human advancement. Kenji listened carefully, and his expression grew darker as she described the evidence she had found. He switched to English so they could communicate more easily and confirmed her suspicions. His companies had been trying for years to share technology with alien governments, but every proposal was rejected for reasons that made no sense. He had suspected deliberate interference but had no way to prove it without access to the alien Translation Archives. Lisa told him about her studies in alien languages and cultures. She had been learning Zephyrian honor codes, Voltan crystal harmonics, and Nethak collective decision-making processes. She understood enough about their communication styles to recognize when translations were wrong, but she needed more practice with real conversations. Kenji was impressed by her dedication and knowledge. He explained that his translator could help her learn alien languages much faster if she was willing to take some risks. The device could analyze alien speech patterns in real time and provide instant feedback on grammar and cultural context, but using it openly would attract attention they were not ready for. They made a plan to test the translator secretly. Lisa would listen to alien conversations during her shifts and use a hidden earpiece connected to Kenji's device. She would practice responding in alien languages while pretending to take orders or clean tables. If the aliens noticed her improved language skills, she would claim she had been studying with human tutors. The first test came that same evening when a group of Voltan merchants started complaining loudly about a shipping delay. They were clicking and chiming in their crystal language about incompetent human workers and primitive human technology. Lisa understood enough to know they were being unfair and insulting. She approached their table with the translator feeding information into her earpiece. The device analyzed their speech patterns and emotional undertones, then provided her with the perfect response in Voltan crystal language. She addressed the lead merchant, using the proper harmonic frequencies for showing respect while disagreeing with a superior. She told them in their own language that the shipping delay was caused by a solar storm that had disrupted communications across 3 star systems. She explained that human workers had actually worked extra shifts to minimize the delay and suggested ways to prevent similar problems in the future. She used technical terms and cultural references that showed deep understanding of Voltan society. The merchants stopped their complaining and stared at her in shock. No human had ever spoken to them in proper crystal language with correct emotional harmonics. They were so surprised they actually listened to her suggestions and realized she was right about the cause of the delays. Word spread quickly through the restaurant that the human waitress could speak real Voltan language. Other alien customers started testing her with questions in their own languages. Lisa used the translator to respond appropriately, showing knowledge of their cultures and respect for their customs. By the end of the evening, aliens were requesting Lisa as their server and asking her opinion on various topics. She was careful not to reveal too much knowledge too quickly, but she demonstrated enough skill to earn their attention and respect. For the first time since humans joined the Galactic Consortium, alien customers were treating a human as an equal. Kenji watched from table 7 with growing excitement. His translator was working even better than he had hoped, and Lisa was proving to be the perfect partner for his plan. She had the social skills and cultural knowledge he lacked, while he had the technology and resources she needed. After the restaurant closed, they met in a private dining room to plan their next steps. Lisa had recorded dozens of alien conversations during her shift, and the translator had analyzed speech patterns from 6 different species. The device was learning and improving with every interaction. Kenji showed Lisa the full capabilities of his translator network. He had been building connections between human communities across the galaxy, creating a secret communication system that alien governments could not monitor or control. Scientists working as janitors on research stations could share their discoveries. Engineers relegated to maintenance duties could collaborate on new inventions. Artists whose work was dismissed as primitive could organize cultural exchanges. The network was ready to revolutionize human society, but it needed someone who could bridge the gap with alien cultures. Lisa had proven she could be that bridge. Together they could break through the barriers that kept humanity isolated and show the galaxy what humans were really capable of achieving. But they would have to be careful, because the forces that wanted to keep humans suppressed would not give up their power without a fight. Over the next few weeks, Lisa threw herself into learning alien cultures with an intensity that surprised even Kenji. She spent every free moment studying Zephyrian honor codes that governed their business dealings. She practiced Voltan crystal harmonics until she could express complex emotional concepts through sound frequencies. She learned to think in the collective patterns that Nethak gas beings used for group decision-making. The universal translator made her learning incredibly fast, but Lisa discovered that technology alone was not enough. She needed to understand the deeper cultural meanings behind the words. Zephyrians valued personal honor above profit, which meant they would walk away from lucrative deals if they felt disrespected. Voltans communicated through geometric patterns that reflected their crystal-based biology. Nethaks made decisions by sharing thoughts across their collective consciousness. Lisa's working-class American background gave her an unexpected advantage in alien diplomacy. She was direct and honest without the political games that usually complicated negotiations. When Zephyrians tested her honor, she responded with simple truth. When Voltans challenged her logic, she admitted when she did not understand something. When Nethaks probed her intentions, she opened her thoughts as much as possible. The aliens found her refreshing, compared to the careful diplomatic language they were used to hearing. She asked questions that cut straight to the heart of problems. She offered solutions that nobody had considered because they were too obvious. She treated everyone with the same respect regardless of their species or status. Word about the human translator spread through Luna Station's alien community faster than Kenji had expected. Within a month, Lisa was being requested specifically by visiting dignitaries who wanted to experience communication with a human who truly understood their cultures. The restaurant manager gave her a promotion and a private dining room for handling sensitive negotiations. The first major breakthrough came when a Nethak collective arrived at the station with a serious internal problem. The collective was made up of 300 individual gas beings who shared consciousness to make group decisions. But something had gone wrong with their mental connections, and they were having trouble communicating with each other. The breakdown was threatening to split the collective apart. Traditional translators could not help because the problem was not about language, but about the way consciousness flowed between individual minds. The Nethaks had tried various technological solutions, but nothing worked because their mental patterns were too complex for existing translation systems. Lisa studied the problem with Kenji's translator and discovered something interesting. The Nethaks thought in shared patterns that were similar to how modern computer networks processed information. Kenji's device could analyze those patterns and help repair the broken connections by providing a technological bridge between minds. The solution required Lisa to act as a living translator connecting to the Nethak collective through the universal translator, while Kenji's technology analyzed and repaired the damaged communication pathways. It was dangerous because connecting to an alien consciousness could damage her human mind, but Lisa volunteered anyway. The process took 3 hours, during which Lisa experienced what it was like to think as part of a group mind. She felt the Nethak, emotions and memories flowing through her consciousness while the translator repaired their damaged connections. She learned to think in collective patterns and helped the individual Nethaks remember how to share thoughts properly. When the process was complete, the Nethak collective was functioning normally again, and they were amazed that human technology had solved a problem their own scientists could not fix. Word of the success reached other alien governments, and suddenly everyone wanted to know more about human translation capabilities. Lisa found herself mediating disputes between species that had been arguing for decades. She helped Zephyrian honor. Warriors understand Voltan logical arguments. She explained Nethak collective decisions to species that thought individually. She translated not just words, but entire ways of thinking that had never been bridged before. Kenji provided the technological foundation, but Lisa became the social catalyst that made everything work. She had a gift for seeing common ground between very different cultures and finding ways to help them understand each other. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and aliens who had never trusted humans began to see possibilities they had never considered. The success brought new challenges as alien governments began to demand access to human translation technology. Official delegations arrived at Luna Station with offers to buy or license Kenji's universal translator. They promised wealth and status beyond imagination if humans would share their technological secrets. But Lisa and Kenji discovered that these offers came with conditions that would have kept humans in a subordinate position. The alien governments wanted to control how the technology was used and prevent humans from developing it further. They offered to make Lisa an official diplomatic translator, but only if she agreed to work exclusively for alien interests. The Unheard offers revealed the depth of alien fear about human potential. They were willing to acknowledge human capabilities, but only if they could control and limit them. They wanted to buy human innovations cheaply and prevent humans from becoming true competitors in galactic society. Lisa realized that accepting these offers would trap humanity in a permanent servant role. Humans would become valuable translators and technicians, but never equal partners in galactic civilization. The alien governments were trying to co-opt human achievements rather than allowing humans to benefit from their own innovations. She and Kenji decided to reject all the official offers and continue working independently. They would use the translator network to connect humans across the galaxy and build their own power base before revealing the full capabilities of their technology. It was a risky strategy because it meant working against the established galactic order. But Lisa had learned something important during her weeks of cultural study. Every alien species had been in humanity's position at some point in their history. They had all started as primitive cultures that had to fight for recognition and respect. The difference was that humans had the advantage of studying from all the other species and learning from their successes and failures. The universal translator was just the beginning. Lisa envisioned a galaxy where all species could communicate freely without government control or corporate manipulation. She saw human communities working together across star systems, sharing knowledge and resources that had been kept separate by artificial barriers. Kenji shared her vision and had the resources to make it reality. His business empire could fund the technology development, while Lisa's diplomatic skills could build the cultural bridges needed for success. Together, they could challenge the power structures that kept humanity isolated and create opportunities for all species to thrive. The next phase of their plan would require careful coordination and absolute secrecy. They were about to challenge governments and corporations that had controlled galactic society for centuries. The risks were enormous, but so were the potential rewards for all of galactic civilization. 3 months into their partnership, Lisa and Kenji made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about human relations with the galaxy. While helping Kenji review decades of rejected business proposals and failed diplomatic initiatives, Lisa noticed patterns in the translation errors that were too systematic to be accidental. Every human proposal for advanced technology sharing had been mistranslated in ways that made the ideas sound primitive or dangerous. Medical breakthrough offers became biological warfare threats. Clean energy solutions were described as planet-destroying weapons. Cultural exchange programs were presented as espionage attempts. The mistranslations were subtle enough to seem like honest mistakes, but consistent enough to reveal deliberate manipulation. Lisa used her growing knowledge of alien languages to retranslate the original human documents and compare them with what alien governments had received. The differences were shocking and made her understand why humans had been rejected from every major galactic initiative for the past 50 years. Kenji pulled up financial records from his business archives and found evidence of economic manipulation as well. Human companies had been excluded from lucrative contracts based on false claims about their capabilities. Trade agreements had been structured to benefit alien corporations at human expense. Patent applications for human innovations had been delayed or rejected, while similar alien patents were approved quickly. The conspiracy went deeper than simple prejudice or cultural misunderstanding. There was an organized effort by established alien powers to keep humanity dependent and powerless in galactic society. Earth's strategic location and abundant resources made it valuable, but only as a client state that could be controlled and exploited. Lisa discovered the conspiracy's organizational structure while translating intercepted communications between alien government officials. A secret alliance called the Consortium Stability Council included representatives from the major alien species, who met regularly to coordinate policies regarding emerging civilizations like humanity. The Council's stated purpose was to maintain peaceful integration of new species into galactic society. Their real function was to prevent new species from developing enough power to challenge the established order. They used economic pressure, cultural manipulation, and technological suppression to keep emerging civilizations in subordinate roles. Humanity was not their first target. Lisa found records of similar campaigns against dozens of other species over the past several centuries. Young civilizations that showed too much promise were systematically weakened until they accepted permanent junior status in the galactic hierarchy. The Council's methods were sophisticated and hard to detect. They would identify key individuals in target civilizations and either corrupt them with offers of personal advancement or discredit them through character assassination. They would suppress technological developments that threatened existing industries. They would create artificial conflicts between different groups within target species to prevent unified resistance. Kenji realized that his own isolation at Stellar Heights had been part of the suppression campaign. The Council had identified him as a potentially dangerous human innovator and arranged for his social exclusion. They could not prevent him from developing new technology, but they could ensure that no alien governments would listen to his proposals. Lisa's success in breaking through that isolation had probably triggered alarms within the Council's monitoring systems. Her growing influence among alien customers and her partnership with Kenji made them both targets for more aggressive suppression measures. They needed to act quickly before the Council realized how much they had learned. Kenji activated secure communication channels with human communities across the galaxy and began sharing evidence of the conspiracy. The response was immediate and angry, as humans realized they had been systematically betrayed and manipulated. For decades, Dr. Patricia Wong on Europa had been trying for years to share her fusion energy breakthrough with alien scientists, but her proposals were always rejected for technical reasons that made no sense. Now she understood that her work threatened alien energy monopolies and had been suppressed deliberately. Jake Morrison on Titan had designed defensive systems that could have prevented numerous space pirate attacks on trade routes, but his security proposals were dismissed as militaristic and aggressive. The mistranslations had made his protective technologies sound like weapons of conquest. Maria Santos on Mars had developed medical treatments that could have saved thousands of alien lives, but her research was blocked by regulatory barriers that did not apply to similar alien innovations. The Council had been protecting pharmaceutical companies from human competition. Across the galaxy, humans working in menial positions despite their advanced qualifications began to understand that their situations were not accidental. Brilliant scientists cleaning laboratories, skilled engineers working as janitors, talented artists dismissed as primitive, all part of a systematic campaign to waste human potential and prevent human advancement. The evidence was overwhelming, but proving it to alien populations would be difficult. The Council controlled most official communication channels and could discredit any accusations as human propaganda. Lisa and Kenji needed a way to reveal the truth that could not be dismissed or suppressed. Lisa proposed using the upcoming annual Consortium Trade Summit, where representatives from all major alien species would gather to discuss economic policies. If they could demonstrate the conspiracy's effects during the summit, they could reach alien populations directly and force their governments to respond. The plan would require coordinating with humans across the galaxy to implement simultaneous demonstrations of suppressed human capabilities. They would need to time everything perfectly to create maximum impact before the Council could organize a response. Kenji began organizing the technology network while Lisa focused on preparing cultural bridges that would help alien populations understand what they had been missing. She recorded messages in dozens of alien languages explaining the conspiracy and its effects on galactic development. They had 6 weeks to prepare before the summit began. 6 weeks to organize a response that would expose decades of manipulation and suppression. 6 weeks to give humanity a chance to claim its rightful place in galactic civilization. The risks were enormous because the Council would not hesitate to use violence to protect their power. But the potential rewards were even greater. Success could liberate not just humanity, but all the other species that had been suppressed over the centuries. Lisa and Kenji were about to challenge the most powerful alliance in galactic history, with nothing but truth technology and the determination of humans who had been pushed too far. They were betting everything on the belief that alien populations would choose justice over the comfortable lies they had been told. The conspiracy had thrived in darkness and secrecy. Soon it would face the light of truth and the galaxy would never be the same. The response to Kenji's call was faster and more widespread than either he or Lisa had expected. Within days, humans across the galaxy were connecting through the Universal Translator Network, sharing their stories and expertise in ways that had never been possible before. Dr. Patricia Wong on Europa was the first to join their coordination efforts. She had been working as a food service manager in the Lunar Research Station cafeteria, while her fusion energy patents collected dust in rejected application files. Through the translator network, she connected with Jake Morrison on Titan, who had been designing defensive systems during his off hours from security guard duties. Maria Santos on Mars brought her medical research experience along with contacts among human communities in the outer system mining colonies. She had been cleaning laboratories and watching alien scientists work on problems she had already solved years earlier. The frustration of seeing preventable deaths caused by technological suppression had made her eager to join any resistance movement. The network grew rapidly as humans shared contact information and recruited others who had been overlooked or suppressed. Each new member brought unique skills and knowledge that had been wasted by the Consortium Stability Council's systematic exclusion policies. Lisa coordinated communications between the growing network while continuing her diplomatic work at Stellar Heights. She had to be careful not to reveal the scope of their activities to alien customers, but her improved translation skills gave her access to increasingly sensitive information about galactic politics and economics. The translator network allowed humans to collaborate on projects that had been impossible under the old communication limitations. Dr. Wong's fusion energy research combined with Jake Morrison's defensive applications and Maria Santos's life support systems to create revolutionary space habitat designs that could house millions of people safely and efficiently. Artists who had been dismissed as primitive began sharing cultural works that blended human creativity with alien aesthetic traditions. Musicians composed symphonies that incorporated Zephyrian honor themes, Voltan crystal harmonics, and Nethak collective consciousness concepts. Writers created stories that explored universal themes while respecting the unique perspectives of different species. Engineers developed transportation systems that could move cargo between star systems faster and safer than anything currently available. Scientists made breakthroughs in communication technology that could connect civilizations across galactic distances instantly. Farmers designed agricultural systems that could feed entire planets using minimal resources. All of these innovations had been suppressed or ignored by alien governments for decades. The translator network revealed the staggering amount of human potential that had been wasted by the conspiracy to keep humanity in a subordinate position. But the network members faced increasing pressure as alien authorities began to notice their activities. Human workers who had been invisible for years were suddenly asking questions and making suggestions that demonstrated advanced knowledge. Supervisors who had never paid attention to human employees started reporting suspicious behavior to security departments. Lisa and Kenji realized they needed to accelerate their timeline. The annual Consortium Trade Summit was still 4 weeks away, but waiting that long risked exposure and suppression of their network before they could reveal the truth to alien populations. They developed a strategy called the Great Demonstration that would showcase human capabilities across the galaxy simultaneously while providing undeniable proof of the conspiracy's effects. Each network member would implement solutions to long-standing problems in their local area, while documentation would be transmitted through the translator network to create a comprehensive record. Dr. Wong would activate her fusion energy systems to provide clean power to Europa's struggling colonies. Jake Morrison would deploy his defensive networks to protect Titan's trade routes from pirate attacks. Maria Santos would distribute her medical treatments to combat a plague that had been killing miners in the asteroid belt. The demonstrations would be coordinated to occur during a single day, when maximum numbers of alien observers would witness the results. Lisa would use her diplomatic contacts to ensure alien media representatives were present to document the improvements. Kenji would broadcast the technical specifications and conspiracy evidence simultaneously across all major communication networks. The plan required precise timing and absolute coordination between hundreds of human participants across dozens of star systems. Any mistakes could result in suppression of the evidence before alien populations could see it. Success depended on overwhelming the conspiracy's response capabilities through sheer scale and speed. Lisa spent weeks preparing alien language broadcasts that would explain the demonstrations and their significance. She needed to present the information in ways that respected different cultural perspectives, while making the conspiracy's deception impossible to deny. The messages had to be emotionally compelling enough to motivate alien populations to demand answers from their governments. Kenji organized secure communication protocols that could survive attempts at jamming or hacking by council forces. He distributed copies of the conspiracy evidence to multiple locations and prepared automatic transmission systems that would activate even if he and Lisa were captured or killed. The network members prepared their demonstrations with careful attention to safety and documentation. They could not afford to cause accidental damage that might discredit their message. Every improvement had to be clearly beneficial and obviously superior to existing alien technologies. 3 days before the planned demonstration, Lisa received intelligence that made her blood run cold. Alien security forces had identified several network members and were preparing raids to arrest them on charges of espionage and sabotage. The conspiracy had discovered their activities and was moving to crush the resistance before it could threaten their power. The network faced an impossible choice. They could abort the demonstration and try to hide their activities, but that would mean abandoning their only chance to expose the conspiracy. Or they could proceed with the plan knowing that many participants would be captured or killed in the process. Lisa called an emergency network conference and presented the situation honestly. Every member understood the risks and the stakes involved. Humanity's future in galactic civilization depended on their success, but failure would mean persecution, or worse, for everyone involved. The vote was unanimous. They would proceed with the great demonstration regardless of the personal consequences. Humans had been suppressed and manipulated for too long. The galaxy needed to see what humanity was capable of achieving when given the chance. Dr. Wong spoke for the entire network when she said that some things were worth dying for, and human dignity was one of them. They had the chance to change galactic civilization forever, and no amount of threats would make them back down. The conspiracy had underestimated human determination and ingenuity. They were about to learn that suppressing a species for decades only made them stronger and more united when they finally fought back. The great demonstration would either liberate humanity or provide an inspiration for future generations to continue the struggle. Either way, the galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they worked together toward a common goal. The day of the great demonstration dawned with news that sent chills through the human network. Alien security forces had arrested 12 network members in coordinated raids across 3 star systems. Dr. Patricia Wong was in custody on Europa, and Jake Morrison had disappeared from his post on Titan. Maria Santos had managed to escape capture on Mars, but was being hunted by security teams. Lisa felt sick as she read the reports coming through the translator network. These were people she had worked with for months planning and preparing for this moment. Now they were paying the price for standing up to the conspiracy, while she remained safely hidden at Stellar Heights. Kenji tried to comfort her by pointing out that the arrest proved their intelligence about the conspiracy was accurate. The Consortium Stability Council was panicking and making desperate moves that would only draw more attention to their suppression efforts. But Lisa knew that real people were suffering for their cause, and the weight of responsibility felt crushing. Despite the arrests, the remaining network members voted to proceed with the demonstration. The captured humans had transmitted their final preparations before being taken, and other members stepped forward to implement their projects. The show of unity and determination strengthened Lisa's resolve to see the plan through to completion. Tao. Exactly noon Galactic Standard Time. The demonstration began across dozens of star systems simultaneously. The coordination was flawless as humans who had been invisible for decades suddenly revealed capabilities that shocked their alien observers. On Europa, substitute engineers activated Dr. Wong's fusion energy systems and brought clean, unlimited power to colonies that had been struggling with energy shortages for years. The alien administrators watched in amazement as human technology solved problems their own experts had declared impossible to fix with current resources. The defensive, Networks that Jake Morrison had designed were deployed by his fellow security workers to protect Titan's trade routes. Within hours, 3 pirate attacks were prevented by automated systems that alien military commanders had been told were beyond human technological capabilities. Medical treatments developed by Maria Santos were distributed by human volunteers in mining colonies across the asteroid belt. Alien doctors watched diseases disappear overnight using simple techniques that their own medical schools had never taught them. Similar demonstrations occurred on every world where humans lived and worked. Agricultural improvements increased crop yields by hundreds of %. Transportation systems that had been plagued by delays and accidents suddenly operated with perfect efficiency. Communication networks that had suffered constant breakdowns became completely reliable. The improvements were impossible to ignore or explain away as coincidence. Alien populations who had never paid attention to human capabilities found themselves directly benefiting from human innovations that their governments had claimed did not exist. Lisa coordinated the media response from Luna Station using her diplomatic contacts to ensure alien reporters witnessed the demonstrations firsthand. She had prepared detailed explanations in dozens of alien languages, showing how each improvement worked and why it had been suppressed by the conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Technical specifications proved that humans had been offering these solutions for decades only to have them rejected through deliberate mistranslation and bureaucratic manipulation. Financial records showed how the rejections had protected alien corporate interests at the expense of galactic progress. But the most powerful evidence came from the conspiracy's own archives, which Kenji broadcast simultaneously across all major communication networks. Recorded conversations between council members discussed strategies for suppressing human advancement. Internal memos detailed methods for discrediting human innovations. Budget allocations showed funding for campaigns to keep humans isolated and powerless. The alien population's response was swift and angry. Zephyrian honor warriors declared that their leaders had violated sacred principles by lying about human capabilities. Voltan crystal merchants calculated the enormous profits they had lost by rejecting human trade proposals. Nethak collectives shared outrage through their group consciousness as they realized how they had been manipulated. Protests erupted on alien worlds as populations demanded explanations from their governments. The careful political balance that had maintained the conspiracy for decades began to collapse under the weight of undeniable evidence and popular anger. The Consortium Stability Council tried to control the damage by claiming the demonstrations were dangerous experiments that threatened galactic security. They ordered immediate arrests of all humans involved and demanded that alien governments suppress the broadcasts before they could spread further. But it was too late. The evidence had been copied and distributed too widely to suppress completely. Alien media organizations that had been excluded from official news distribution began broadcasting the truth about human capabilities and the conspiracy that had hidden them. Young aliens who had never been told about the systematic suppression of emerging species began organizing resistance movements on their homeworlds. They demanded democratic reforms and equal treatment for all species regardless of their technological development level. The conspiracy fought back with increasing desperation. Security forces raided human communities and arrested anyone suspected of participating in the network. Communication jamming attempted to disrupt the translator systems. Economic sanctions threatened any alien groups that supported human equality. But the genie was out of the bottle and could not be forced back in. Too many aliens had seen proof of human capabilities and conspiracy deception to believe the official denials. The demonstrations had created momentum that continued growing despite attempts at suppression. Lisa found herself at the center of a galactic political revolution as alien delegations arrived at Luna Station, demanding to meet with human representatives. She was no longer just a waitress who could speak alien languages, but a symbol of human determination and the possibilities for interspecies cooperation. Kenji's translator network had become the foundation for a new kind of galactic communication that could not be controlled by government censors or corporate interests. Humans and aliens were connecting directly to share information and coordinate resistance to the old power structures. The great demonstration had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. But Lisa knew the real work was just beginning. They had exposed the conspiracy and proven human capabilities, but building a new galactic order based on equality and cooperation would require years of careful diplomacy and determined effort. The old system was fighting for its survival and would not surrender, without using every weapon at its disposal. Lisa and Kenji had started a revolution, but they still had to win it before humanity could claim its rightful place among the stars. The conspiracy had underestimated human ingenuity and determination for the last time. Now they faced the consequences of suppressing a species that refused to accept injustice as permanent. The weeks following the Great Demonstration brought chaos to galactic politics as alien populations demanded answers from governments that had been lying to them for decades. The evidence of systematic suppression could not be denied, and the political consequences spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On Zephyria, the Honor Warrior caste declared their government leaders had violated sacred principles by deceiving their people about human capabilities. Traditional honor codes required truth in all dealings, and the deliberate mistranslation of human proposals was seen as the worst kind of betrayal. Younger warriors began challenging their elders for leadership roles, promising to restore honor through honest relationships with humanity. The Voltan crystal merchants faced internal revolution as their rigid social hierarchy cracked under pressure from reform movements. The discovery that human trade proposals had been rejected for false reasons cost their society enormous profits and opportunities. Voltan mathematicians calculated exactly how much wealth had been lost through conspiracy policies, and the numbers were staggering enough to fuel widespread anger. The Nethak collectives experienced something unprecedented in their species' history. As individual members began questioning group decisions for the first time, the shared consciousness that had always provided unity started fragmenting as different factions formed around competing responses to the human situation. Some Nethaks wanted immediate integration with human society, while others feared losing their collective identity. Lisa found herself appointed as Earth's first official galactic communications ambassador, as alien delegations flooded Luna Station seeking direct negotiations with human representatives. She had gone from serving tables to representing her entire species in diplomatic discussions that would shape the future of galactic civilization. Kenji's technology became the foundation for a new universal translation network that could not be controlled by government censors or corporate interests. The old translation monopolies collapsed as alien populations gained access to direct communication with humans and other suppressed species. Information that had been hidden for centuries suddenly became available to anyone with access to the network. But the old power structures did not surrender without a fight. The Consortium Stability Council activated emergency protocols designed to maintain order during political crises. Security forces loyal to the conspiracy began arresting reform leaders and shutting down communication networks. Economic sanctions targeted any groups that supported human equality or democratic reforms. The crisis deepened when hardline alien factions began organizing military responses to what they called the human contamination threat. They claimed that human influence was destroying traditional alien societies and threatened the stability that had maintained galactic peace for centuries. Secret fleets began gathering in remote star systems, preparing for actions that could lead to interspecies war. Lisa used her diplomatic skills to build coalitions between moderate alien factions and human communities, while working to prevent the crisis from escalating into open conflict. She organized cultural exchange programs that allowed aliens to experience human society directly, rather than relying on government propaganda. She facilitated trade agreements that demonstrated the benefits of human partnership while respecting alien traditions. The work was exhausting and dangerous as extremist groups on both sides tried to sabotage peace efforts. Human supremacist movements emerged, claiming that the conspiracy proved aliens could never be trusted as equals. Alien terrorist organizations attacked human settlements, claiming they were defending galactic purity from contamination. Kenji coordinated with Dr. Patricia Wong, who had been released from custody when the Europa government collapsed and was replaced by a reform coalition. Her fusion energy technology became a symbol of human innovation, as dozens of alien worlds requested assistance with their own energy problems. The practical benefits of human partnership proved more persuasive than any diplomatic arguments. Jake. Morrison returned from hiding on Titan with evidence that the conspiracy had been planning even more extreme measures, including biological weapons designed to weaken human populations. The discovery triggered outrage among alien species who had not known about the Council's willingness to commit genocide to maintain power. Maria Santos organized human medical teams that provided emergency assistance during alien political transitions. Her treatment saved thousands of lives as protest movements faced government crackdowns, and the evidence of human compassion helped counter extremist propaganda about human aggression. The turning point came when a coalition of moderate alien governments formally recognized human equality and invited Earth to join a new galactic organization based on democratic principles rather than species hierarchy. The invitation split the old consortium as member species chose between maintaining traditional power structures or embracing reform. Young aliens who had grown up with access to human culture through the translator network became powerful voices for change in their societies. They organized protests and political movements that demanded equal treatment for all species, regardless of technological development or historical status. Their energy and idealism proved unstoppable, as older generations found themselves outnumbered by youth who refused to accept inherited prejudices. The revolution was not without costs, as several star systems descended into civil war between reform and traditionalist factions. Refugee crises developed as millions of beings fled violence and persecution. Economic disruption caused by political instability threatened food supplies and basic services across multiple worlds. Lisa worked tirelessly to coordinate humanitarian assistance while building the diplomatic framework for a new galactic order. She helped negotiate ceasefires between warring factions and organized reconstruction efforts in devastated areas. Her reputation for honesty and cultural sensitivity made her trusted by all sides, even when they could not trust each other. The Old Consortium Stability Council made one final desperate attempt to restore their control by launching simultaneous attacks on human colonies and moderate alien governments. They had assembled a fleet of loyalist ships and planned to demonstrate that resistance to their authority would be met with overwhelming force. But the conspiracy's military strength had been built on the assumption that humans and progressive aliens would remain divided and powerless. The translator network allowed instant coordination of defensive efforts, while human technology provided capabilities that traditional alien military doctrine could not counter. The final battle was brief, but decisive as conspiracy forces discovered that their enemies had advantages they had never anticipated. Human defensive systems protected alien worlds while alien resources supported human colonies. The cooperation that the conspiracy had spent decades preventing became the foundation for their ultimate defeat. With their military option eliminated, and their political support collapsing, the remaining conspiracy leaders fled to remote sectors of the galaxy, or surrendered to reform governments, promising to cooperate with investigations. The systematic suppression that had shaped galactic politics for centuries was finally ending. Lisa and Kenji had started their partnership to help one lonely man find respect in an alien restaurant, but their efforts had transformed the entire galaxy into something better than anyone had imagined possible. 5 years after the Great Demonstration, the restaurant formerly known as Stellar Heights had been expanded and renamed Harmony Station. The dining room where Kenji had once sat alone and ignored now bustled with mixed species groups conducting business in perfect translation harmony. The old Table 7 had become the centerpiece of a weekly innovation workshop, where humans and aliens collaborated on projects that benefited the entire galaxy. Lisa walked through the familiar space, but everything had changed in ways that still amazed her. Young Zephyrian honor warriors studied alongside human engineers, learning to combine their cultural values with practical problem-solving skills. Voltan crystal merchants worked with human artists to create beautiful structures that were both functional and aesthetically pleasing. Nethak collectives shared consciousness space with human researchers exploring the boundaries between individual and group thinking. As director of interspecies relations, Lisa had offices on 12 different worlds, but she still returned to Luna Station every Tuesday to meet with Kenji and coordinate their ongoing work. The Universal Translator Network had grown into a galactic communication system that connected billions of beings across thousands of worlds, allowing free exchange of information and ideas without government interference. Kenji had become head of the Galactic Technology Cooperative, an organization that ensured innovations were shared fairly among all species, rather than hoarded by the most powerful. His translator technology was just the beginning as humans and aliens worked together to develop solutions for problems that had seemed impossible when each species worked alone. The transformation had not been easy or complete. There were still worlds where traditional power structures resisted change and species that preferred isolation to integration. Some regions of the galaxy remained dangerous as conspiracy remnants and extremist groups continued fighting against the new order. But the overall direction was clear as more species chose cooperation over conflict. Dr. Patricia Wong had established fusion energy networks that provided clean power to hundreds of worlds, eliminating the scarcity conflicts that had plagued many regions for centuries. Her technology was freely shared rather than controlled by corporate monopolies, creating prosperity that benefited entire populations rather than small elite groups. Jake Morrison commanded a joint species defense force that protected trade routes and vulnerable colonies from pirates and extremists. His integrated approach combined human tactical flexibility with alien technological capabilities and cultural knowledge. The force was more effective than any single species military while maintaining democratic oversight and humanitarian principles. Maria Santos directed galactic health initiatives that had eliminated diseases and medical conditions across dozens of species. Her research teams included the best minds from every major civilization working together to understand biological processes that no single species could have comprehended alone. The results saved millions of lives and improved quality of existence for billions more. The cultural changes were as dramatic as the technological ones. Human art forms had influenced alien aesthetics, while alien perspectives had expanded human creative possibilities. Music that combined multiple species traditions created sounds that none could have achieved independently. Literature explored universal themes while respecting the unique experiences of different forms of consciousness. Young beings growing up in the integrated galaxy thought differently than their parents had. They saw species differences as interesting variations rather than barriers to communication. They formed friendships and partnerships across biological boundaries that previous generations had considered impossible. They took for granted opportunities that their elders had fought revolutions to achieve. Lisa often reflected on how her simple act of bringing tea to a lonely man had triggered changes that transformed galactic civilization. But she understood that the transformation had been inevitable once beings of goodwill chose cooperation over fear. The conspiracy had succeeded for centuries only because people had been kept ignorant and isolated from each other. The restaurant's evening rush was beginning as delegations from across the galaxy gathered for the weekly coordination meeting. Lisa greeted familiar faces and welcomed newcomers with the same attention to cultural courtesy that had first impressed alien customers years earlier. She still remembered the greeting customs and dietary preferences of dozens of species, even though her diplomatic responsibilities had expanded far beyond restaurant service. Kenji arrived exactly on time as he had every Tuesday for the past 5 years. He looked older but more relaxed than the isolated billionaire who had sat alone at table 7 enduring weekly humiliation. His universal translator had given him the voice he needed to share his innovations, but more importantly, it had connected him with beings who appreciated his contributions and valued his friendship. They took their usual seats at the expanded table, 7 now surrounded by the mixed species innovation workshop participants. The evening's agenda included reports from development projects on frontier worlds, updates on scientific research collaborations, and discussions of cultural exchange programs that were building understanding between previously hostile species. The conversation flowed seamlessly between multiple languages, as the Universal Translator Network handled real-time interpretation for dozens of different communication methods. Crystalline chimes from Voltan participants harmonized with gaseous fluctuations from Nethak representatives, while human voices and Zephyrian honor declarations added their own contributions to the complex symphony of ideas. Lisa listened to reports of progress that would have seemed impossible during her waitressing days. Agricultural techniques that could feed entire star systems. medical treatments that extended life and improved health for all species. Transportation, methods that made galactic travel safe, fast, and affordable for ordinary citizens, rather than just government officials and corporate executives. But the most important achievements were not technological but social. The barriers that had kept species isolated and suspicious were disappearing as beings learned to see each other as individuals rather than stereotypes. Trust was replacing fear as the foundation for galactic relationships. Cooperation was becoming normal rather than exceptional. As the meeting concluded, Lisa looked around the table at faces that represented hope for a better future. The conspiracy that had oppressed emerging species for centuries was broken. The power structures that had maintained inequality through deception and violence were being replaced by democratic institutions that respected the dignity and potential of all conscious beings. Kenji raised his teacup in a traditional gesture of gratitude and respect. The mixed species group joined him in their own cultural expressions of appreciation and unity. The simple ceremony represented something profound about the changes they had helped create. Differences were celebrated rather than feared. Traditions were shared rather than hoarded. Understanding replaced ignorance as the basis for relationships between species. Lisa smiled as she remembered the lonely man who had sat unheard at this same table 5 years ago. His silence had been broken not by grand gestures or political speeches, but by simple human kindness and the determination to treat others with dignity and respect. The lesson had changed the galaxy and would continue shaping its future for generations to come. The universal translator displayed a message in thousands of alien languages, all saying the same thing that had become the motto of the new galactic civilization. Thank you for listening.